I know you guys are gonna call me terrible, but I was like listening to this lady for a second, and she reminded me of those old school like Catholic teachers that are like, whoosh, whoosh, you know, that thing. But I was reading her name, dude. It says Commissioner Cressida Dick. I don't know, man.
It will respond to me, but will, of course, make recommendations for changes, I'm sure, and those will be public.
Yeah, but she doesn't have a good grasp on what the problem is. That's the problem. If you don't know what the problem really is and where it stemmed from, you're not going to fix the problem. And those guys can't be fixed. Why do women think they can fix these men? I don't know. Once they're ruined, they're ruined. That's it. They're the real ruined goods. I mean, that's the actual truth of it. Because that's a thing from abuse. So that thing there, it's all a flip-floppery of the perpetrator. So all of the, okay, so I'll say this to victims. So all of the terms and the sentences and the responses that have been told to you is actually just a projection from the perpetrator onto you. So it's actually about them. You know, like the thing about ruined goods. I mean, the real ruined goods are these guys. I mean, who the hell wants to be with these rapists? Okay, so okay, that's that thing. So then they'll say things like, you knew what you were getting into, and that's a flag. That sentence right there is a flag. You know, or the enabling of the boys will be boys. You know, unfortunately, we all got this crap, okay? So it wasn't just, you know, the people I'm calling out. It's just that's who said it at the time. But everybody has said some of these things. So that is actually a sociopath thing when they start flipping it onto the victim. Because they're going to blame you because they do not take accountability, right? Of course not. It's your fault. It's your fault for allowing me in your house and raping you. That's an argument. That argument actually came up in a case. I don't think I pulled it up here. I pulled it up elsewhere. But it was like the guy is suing this girl's parents that they all went to a Catholic school together. And the parents were celebrating and let the boyfriend come over, and he alleges that the parents gave him drinks and drugs, okay? Regardless of that, whether they did or didn't, which that would be a separate lawsuit for some negligence there, but because they were under 21 and drugs is never legal to give to kids, you know, okay, there's that thing. Now, I don't know if the drugs meant included, they gave him some pot. Okay, I don't know, but that's what they said. So his argument with the lawyer is because the parents gave me a drink, I became a rapist. And I was like, oh no, he cannot win that case. If he wins that case, then what they're saying is they justify saying him drinking turned him into a rapist monster. And that's not how that goes. And perpetrators continually try to put off the accountability, the blame, right, onto another person or a thing or a circumstance. So they do that type of thing. And so that was the argument in that. I go, now if the lawyer went after him for, or suing them for giving me my son alcohol because he was a minor on its own, would make some sense. Not, oh, when my client gets drunk, he turns into a monster rapist, and so therefore it's the parents' fault that he turned into a rapist. It just didn't, it was so wrong. But they literally just filed this thing, and I was like, I cannot believe it. I go, the next thing they're going to do is say, we're going to sue the victim for allowing me into her house when she knew I would rape her. It's her fault that I went in and raped her. It's going to do this thing. And that's kind of where the argument went. I go, would you want to be with that guy? And the mom is the problem in the story, actually, because the mom is the one that got him to file the suit, right? So she filed the suit because he's a minor. And so the mom is the enabler in him being a rapist. So you could already see what happened there in the enabling in his childhood, in the early portion. So she's the one enabling it, going, my son cannot be held accountable for him being a rapist. We have to go after somebody else's parents for my son being a rapist, not herself, right? So it's her teaching her son that. Okay, yeah, so some of my viewers didn't know about this story, and so it made the news again for some different abuse. Well, from like different abuses, some different variations off the story. So, Sarah Everard's legacy: police sexual misconduct complaints soar by almost 50% in wake of murder. Okay, now this is in the UK, I do believe. It was not here in America. England and Wales, I guess. Okay, we'll get through it. America hasn't had this moment yet. I've been really big on that. This is like one of the early topics I've been on this whole thing. I think I've seen one lawsuit on a group of women of color where the police were raping a whole area of them. And it's been a common thing. That's why we can't get anybody arrested to go to jail for this particular crime. Okay. And my story is a big one and revolves of this thing. But so this girl was basically, I think she was kidnapped and then raped and then killed by the police officer. I think that was the original story. We'll get through it. So if I'm wrong, we're going to correct things. But I do believe that was it. Too many women seen as a commodity by police officers to abuse. Former police chief warns after figures show stark rise in complaints. They've always been abusive to women because they're a male supremacist entity, right? They're created by male supremacists, so they view women as an object to rape, and we're here to pleasure and serve them, right? That is the actual mindset of and the origin when they created these entities. And so, of course, you're going to see that. But women were indoctrinated and brainwashed to do the be just let it happen, basically. And even if they did not agree with this mindset, they were not really allowed to report anything, right? So because the cops, the minute women talk, they have that auto turn off thing and they want to talk some shit. Okay, so yeah, and then every time that these officers talk, they like to use women as a definition of what the word weak means. And you'll catch it. I'm telling you, pay attention to it. Every time a man starts talking, try to count like how many times they degrade you in order to seem like they're some like masculine men. A lot. And those are the guys to be aware of. That's the flag. You don't want to get raped? Don't be with that guy. It is the flag. So those are the rapists. It's just a fact. Okay, so here's this thing. Allegations of police sexual harassment and assault have soared by almost 50% since the rape and murder of Sarah Everard. Everard. If I'm chopping up names, expect it from me. It's not on purpose. Okay, by a serving police officer. Okay. Analysis of police watchdog figured by this publication has uncovered a dramatic spike in reports, not conduct, but in reports that women are going, okay, I'm going to report it now. Because I'll tell you at the time that it happened, because the public's always like, you should take it as a compliment that a whole bunch of officers on their motorcycle were flirting with you when you were a minor. See? And that's sexual harassment on a kid. That was one of the early things that happened before, I think it was before the initial other things that were occurring, but that was in the Hollywood division. The motorcycle ones in the Hollywood division. I don't know who they are. But yeah, they were riding up on the side of me, and they don't care your age, and they're going to sexually harass you and think they're the hottest shit on the street, I guess. Okay. And kids didn't, that would be the furthest thing from my mind is go, oh, they're sexually harassing me and they're a bunch of pedos. I should go report these guys. Like, that wasn't even a thought at that moment. And it should have been. That's the non-reaction in an area that is just because it was normalized and promoted and we're supposed to take it and not tell kids that that's really bad. And even if you said something, they'd be like, oh, nothing happened to you. Okay, so then, okay, the analysis of police watchdog figures by this publication has uncovered a dramatic spike in reports from members of the public about police sexual misconduct, with 293 complaints made against officers and staff last year. The total includes more than 200 allegations of sexual assault, 20 accounts of sexual harassment, and 65 complaints recorded as other sexual conduct against forces in England and Wales in 22 to 23. I would think the amount of sexual harassment would be higher than the sexual assault, though they're all rapists. It's sort of like the harassment is the more okay thing to do in public in front of everybody. And maybe that thing right there is the area where the public still normalizes men sexually harassing us, and they're not reporting it as much as they understand what a sexual assault is. Um, I'm just trying to figure that one out because it's like 200 sexual assault allegations, but 20 accounts of sexual harassment. It's just sort of like there probably should have been like 400 accounts of sexual harassment and then 200 allegations of sexual assault. It would be the same guys doing it, but I don't know if they would all actually go as far as the assault. I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking about it out loud, and it would seem like that number would be equal, if not higher, than the assault itself. But the assaults, you know, them grabbing you and just doing those things, yeah. And maybe it's not even including that. Maybe they're, I don't know. You know, what are you including in sexual assault? And then, and 65 complaints recorded as other sexual conduct. So I was like, well, what's that? The guy doing something, you know, in the room and making you watch. I mean, you know, I just like the definitions because, like, they say that and it's like, well, what is your definition of that? What are they exactly reporting there? Are you're including rape in the assault? I mean, it's all rape to me, but, you know, their definition. Anyway, it says this is up from 199 sexual conduct complaints lodged with the Independent Office of Police 3 years earlier, when police corruption was dramatically thrust into the limelight after Miss Everard was kidnapped and murdered by Metropolitan Police Officer Wayne Cousins. Former police chief Sue Fish warned, sadly, too many women are seen as a commodity by police officers and commodities to abuse. Yeah, ask me about that one. Ask me about that one. I'm not putting up with it today. And I wasn't really putting it up with it then either. I was being vocal. I was like, is this normal with you guys? Do you guys get stopped like 20 times a day? Like, does this happen? Is this normal? Like, it's normal to me. I don't know why it's normal. Okay, so Labor MP Jez Phillips called for a sea change. A sea change. Okay, in police vetting to stamp out misogyny. Oh, how are you vetting? I'll give you a perfect vetting thing. I mean, it's foolproof. The way they talk. Okay, so that's actually, okay, throw that lie detector test out because many of them can pass it. It has to do with their speech and how they view other humans, okay? This is how we pick them out. We already know. We just had a really good example of it, and not in a good way. It shouldn't have happened. Where I picked it up in the speech, and then something happened. Okay, so, and that's how I picked up other perpetrators. They never once said they raped a person. It's their speech about the person that leads me to understand that they did that. It's just that. It's really not that hard. I mean, it's like if you hear a guy trashing shit about women, using women as a definition of weak, doing those things, those are rapists. Anybody that's anti-agency on any level, where they don't consult with you to do something and they force you to do things, that's how they're going to be in private. In the worst of ways. Yes. But how are you going to stamp out misogyny when you're having people go into an entity that was created by misogynists? That's another thing. So that main problem, now, while there probably is a way to deal with them more with police officers than there would be with, say, military. Military is a major problem in a million different ways. Police, you can make them non-violent. Military is a different problem. Military is a very difficult issue. Like I said, as like right now, it's an impossibility to fix that crap over there. That much I know. You would have to change the entire mindset about the world in general. A lot of things with that. So, could it get there? I mean, maybe. But it can't exist the way it is right now. Okay, so the Independent can report policing top brass fear. Those coming forward to make complaints are the tip of the iceberg. Yeah, that's like it's like a speck of dust for the overall conduct. If you walk into a police station and they're telling you that oh, you were drinking and you got raped, that's not rape, and that means consent, that crap that was going on. What do you think that officer's doing? If he's saying that, that means that he does that to other women. That's it. And he's pro-rape. He's anti-agency. He doesn't believe that you should be he doesn't believe that you should even be conscious. Like, it's just your fault because you made yourself unconscious. So, therefore, it's an invitation for his you-know-what. He's a sociopath. Do you guys I mean, I really go over this like a million times so you get sick of it. So it's just in your brain where you're just so sick of it and you just know it. And so every day you pick it out, like where it's just like second nature. That's the language. That's what they do. And you see how it's all combined because it comes straight out of having a personality disorder. Criminally minded. Yes. And they're the ones that created all the entities to make sure they don't go to prison. Isn't that fun? Who abuses us the most in the thing? I mean, because you could have all the perpetrators out here that you want. But who do you call? I'm like, it's not Ghostbusters. They're like going off like that. No, who do you call? You call them. And then they're the ones that cover it up. They're the ones that don't react. They're the rapists. And they kept it going on and on and on and on and on. And now the whole world's a rapist. I mean, it's just that. Quite simply. It's like if you let a disease spread and you do nothing about it, it goes everywhere, right? And everybody's sick. Shockingly, the IOPC noted 136 allegations classified as abuse of position or sexual conduct were handled informally by police forces, meaning the allegations were resolved without independent scrutiny. There has also been a huge uptick in referrals from police forces to IOPC in the years since Cousins was exposed, with numbers expected to top 7,000 this year from 4,000 5 years ago. Miss Fish, who was the first chief constable to ever record misogyny as a hate crime. That's not here in America. Misogyny is celebrated in fucking America. But over there, you still allow them to rape kids. So that's not quite a hate crime yet with that, is it? It is a hate crime. But, yeah. Misogyny, it's not really the correct word. So male supremacy and being a sociopath. But no, but you're talking about the indoctrination of the mindset. Okay, so yeah, it's male supremacy. So that's we call them a cult. It's basically a cult because it's a mindset. It's that, oh, all men are the head leaders of the universe and women were gifts from God for them to rape. You know that crap. They all want to run a human trafficking ring. That thing right there. But it's also a personality disorder. That it came from that. It has the thing from the God complex. That's part of that thing right there. that jalopy PD that they have. Which was from child abuse and all that crap. Yeah. And indoctrination. It's quite a combo cluster of fucks. Yeah, I would not use the word like on its like misogyny because it kind of doesn't represent that it's actually a cult of men, because it technically is, because it's not now mind you, women hold these views too, but but the women don't believe that they're the high power of the world, right? They believe that the men are, and they're supposed to submit to them. you know, and that thing. And then they start sex shaming other women themselves, which, because they're ding dongs, that thing. Yeah. Supremacist. It's like being a Nazi, because that is part of that thing. Um, and the crimes that they did or do on people are hate crimes. Yeah. The word misogyny just doesn't really come off right for what that is actually. I have chattels and forums and everything for days of me talking about this stuff for decades. I learn things every year just as anybody else, but I was ahead learning about things while talking. And then every time like they catch up, like I learned 10 more years of stuff. And then now we're on this whole other thing about talking about what do rapists do. And so all the conduct that they do here, which you're saying misogyny, whatever, that's a rapist because they're anti-agency. They do not believe in agency. They believe in control. They don't believe in asking women anything. It's just basically that thing. I mean, you're looking at all the things that they're for, so they're for anti-agency. They're for anti-agency. So it'd be anti-asking you for sex. So it's rape. And choices. Okay, so the abortion thing is also an anti-agency hate crime. Why is America allowing that? You know? Same issues across the globe. We're all having the same problem. It's just interesting how some countries are ahead a little bit on topic on some things, whereas America's so far behind. Because this topic of cops is still not even here. They're just barely coming around to knowing that they're gang members. And I was sitting there going, I literally had been talking about this for decades. And I reported this thing and I told them, I go, oh, you know, you can't out my name because there's some gang members. And then some woman outs my name. Because she has a love for cops. And no matter what, of them being rapists and murderers, decides that they're going to put a woman's life at risk. Now, we had multiple people do that. And, you know, most of those people are Christian. They're Christian women that did that. If you look in the history, they're the ones that killed a bunch of Indian kids too, right? They're abusers. They were never lovers. They were never morally sound. They took the hook and sinker right there to be idiots for men. You outed a female to what you were told were dangerous men. Why would you do that in all the brain cells that you have, okay? And if I died, what would happen? I mean, I wouldn't be here. But what would have happened? Nobody would have gotten in trouble for that. It's male supremacy. I wouldn't go misogyny because it doesn't quite tackle what that is. It's a cult. It's a cult mentality. It was indoctrinated. So it comes from a very specific doctrine that is global. So it's a little offensive to kind of use some mild form of something. I don't know. It somehow bothers me because it doesn't quite exactly define what this is. Okay, so anyway, the report abuses of Sarah after her death ignited debate over police corruption and triggered a review of culture and standards at the Met by Baroness Louise Casey, who concluded the force is institutionally misogynistic. No, the institution is institutionally male supremacist. I believe it's white male supremacist as well. That's been the problem. But male supremacy generally, because, you know, when they all get together, they hold the same viewpoints. It's just one group thinks they're above the other. But she fears the numbers are only the tip of the iceberg, as many victims of the police perpetrated sexual abuse will still not feel safe to report their attacker. While campaigners warn sexual abuse is undermining trust in policing. We should have never trusted the police. That was the crazy thing. I was indoctrinated to trust them no matter what, and don't even question them. Okay, how ridiculous is that? And yet my dad had problems with them himself. It didn't make any sense. But anyway, um, the other portion of that is the public is a bunch of psychotic loons. And so if you go to report anything or even speak out in public, they start bullying you, and some people get killed. Are you protected? No. Did they protect me? No. They did a lot of hate crimes on me? Yes. Did the police help them out? Yes. They're a pile of shit. Yes. Okay, so Miss Fish told The Independent, you could say this is Sarah's legacy if you like. A woman saying, actually, this isn't acceptable. And some women, but not all women, are increasingly able to stand up and say, this is what happened to me, particularly in light of Baroness Casey review. I feel a little privileged in some way that when I spoke up, you didn't have a family member go and try to murder me. You didn't have, it just didn't happen. We didn't have this snitching bullshit going on. Again, that's just a cover for male supremacists, regardless of the race, anything. That's to protect men. Again, women hurt themselves with that, but is it really a choice? Because if they do, the threat is death. Does that mean, is that really great? Women need to help protect them because you can't keep this going on. That's a thing. So, okay, so here's the other thing. So they're saying they're absolutely fed up with being treated so appalling by people who are supposed to protect them and uphold the law, and more power for them for calling it out, right? Miss Fish, who was awarded an OBE for services to policing before she retired as chief constable of Nottinghamshire Police in 2017, said most officers are joining the force to do good. No, they're not. But that they swim in a pool which is deeply misogynistic. That's full of shit. They're socios before they even became a police officer. And why are they desiring to be a police officer anyway to begin with? You don't turn into a misogynist as an adult. That is something deeply ingrained in your upbringing in your developing years. That has to do with your religions and everything else in society and how they're talking about women and other human beings. So no, nobody gets indoctrinated at the last minute, like when they're 20 something going into the department. How idiotic is that? So when you join the department, you all of a sudden turn into a sociopath? That would be the first time I ever heard that. It's as ridiculous as someone saying I got drunk and turned into a rapist monster. The drink did it to me. You know that thing? It's that excuse. You have it wrong. They don't want to tackle their religious garbage. Their religious shit that they've crapped all over the world with. And that message that they spread there. Because I know exactly where it came from. We laid it out a million times over. That shit is in there on the first pages. And you can match it up in the other religions across the globe. And you'll find that same extremism in their writing. Yes. So I have to sit there and talk down to people. Because it's like they can't figure it out. It's like someone told you something when you were a kid. And you just kept running with it. And you never questioned it. That's the way it is. Oh, well, anything that I threw into your stupid brain growing up, you would have taken it that way. Why do you think that what you were taught is the way of the world? I don't know. I don't know. It's just how that's how it is. They're like, because that's what I was told. How dare you tell me anything else? I can't think past my stupidity. You know, it's this thing. I just cannot. They told me not to think about anything else. Yeah. So I do that. I don't study about anything else. I was told to just keep my mind on this because everything else is bad. It's so stupid. But yeah, that's kind of the brain of these people. God. Okay, it says there's a failure in policing and in government to accept that the barrel is rotten. If you can't trust in the barrel. Okay, so this is what I don't like about that. Okay, so now they're just blaming the institution for good human. This is not a thing, okay? This is really annoying. That good humans walked into this these departments into policing, and they all of a sudden turn into a rapist, sociopath piece of shit. That's what they're trying to say here. They have it wrong. I'm just saying this is what they're saying because this is the framework of this right now. She's like, the very institutions who are meant to protect you, the whole system has failed. They were actually never here to protect women. They were there to uphold white male supremacy. That says male supremacy, M. So you're using the wrong terminology, so you're not getting it. Male supremacy. They're there to protect white men. And you have to fall in line with Christianity. That's the addition to it, because they will not sit there and be protecting somebody else. Christianity. Now, in England and in Wales, I've got all these crazy Catholics. They're not even, I mean, they're the same. It just goes in there. But anyway, yes. So what they were upholding was white male Christians, male supremacists. So that's what they were protecting and upholding. Because if you were that, then you were morally sound to them, and you ran a human trafficking ring, and you raped women, children. You raped children. Because that's the actual historical thing, and it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago. You guys are raping 12-year-olds, so I don't know. I like Florida's fake laws of, we're so against this that we put the death penalty on the table for this, but you could still go rape some 12-year-olds, and somehow we think that the death penalty is going to actually stop this conduct. And we should be promoting murdering people like we're in the Middle East. Okay, yeah. Those are the Christians. I thought they were against killing people, right? Didn't they have that? Thou shalt not murder. Only when we decide, you know what I mean? We're going to justify this here. We're going to pretend that we're against abortion so we can control women. But we're going to throw in this thing, a death penalty here on some humans. For something that's not, it's just amazing to me. These people are the rapists. They're the rapists, okay? Miss Phillips, who used to shadow ministers for domestic violence, okay, and safeguarding, told the Independent, there has got to be a sea change in vetting and disciplinary procedures within police. Good luck finding the non-male supremacist rapist. If I am having a problem not finding somebody that doesn't fit into that, I mean, we have women that fit into that. Power and control, right? I want to be a police officer. Why do you want to be a police officer? I was abused as a kid. Yeah, that's the one that you don't hire. Okay, so find that kid. Find that one that grew up that wasn't abused as a kid. So that's another problem in it, right? See, no, they're totally off. They don't even know how to tackle the problem because they're not talking about the problem properly. And if you don't, then you miss all the other problems. And you also miss how to catch them just sitting in a room and having a discussion with them. They're quite easy most of the time. And you could lead that conversation to figure it out. But if you don't know what to look for, I do. Most of the time, when I'm paying attention. But yeah, most of the time. Yeah. If we have any chance of rebuilding confidence for women in the police. No, should we ever? No, probably not. This cannot wait, and the government must ensure that every force is handling every case appropriately, ensuring independence is in the process. At the moment, there are still too many cases of forces marking their own homework when it comes to domestic and sexual abuse allegations. Oh yeah, I had to bring up that they didn't even take photographs of me on assault calls. Like, what is that? I was like, I swear to God, I think only one time they took photographs of me was when the military guy got violent, right? And so then they let him run free, right? They let him escape. And then they're like, yeah, he's on probation. He's supposed to come here in the morning. We'll give you a call to come in and give him the paperwork. And then he's gone. He's run like the wind, right? So, yeah, but there was multiple calls on assaults, and none of them took photographs. And I was thinking about that. I go, oh, that's really weird, because they showed up and I was injured, and I go, they never even brought out a thing to take a photo. And they just left me there in those cases. They didn't make arrests. They laughed. They left. They laughed and left. That's what we call laugh and leave. That's a conduct that they do. They laugh and leave. I mean, they are literally laughing because they enjoy harming each other. They enjoy harming women. They enjoy women getting harmed because they're sick bastards, okay? They're socios. That's what they do. That's what they enjoy. That's why you get Ted Bundy. He enjoys murder. He enjoys those things. They're sadists. I love how they like, oh, it's no big deal that a whole bunch of cops want to hang out with you and be like your slave boy. I was just like, totally normal. Okay, the figure shows some 24 complaints were made against police and staff at the Valley Police, while 15 were logged for both Greater Manchester and Nottingham Police. So West Midland recorded 11 complaints, while 10 were lodged against the Essex Police. A further 74 complaints were made of police abusing their position for a sexual purpose last year. They said it in the way that I said it. I go, yeah, they lured me here for a sexual purpose. Yeah, a kid, right? That was the initial thing with the other perpetrator that's not a cop. But the minute that happened, then all the cops came out that were child predators, then abused their position of power on me. So they were all rapists. Like I said, they're male supremacists. They're white male supremacists. They're just general male supremacists now, because it's not like it's segregated between only white. And then some people will want to try to argue because they're joining white male supremacy. And in part, that you could argue that. But the truth is that white male supremacy came out of just male supremacy itself. So it's just a group of them out of that. I don't know. They just don't get it. They don't get it. They want to blame. See, that's the problem. If you don't have a mirror on this topic, you'll never get it. And you're not away from the topic either. Everybody has the problem. Okay, so although this is not recorded under sexual conduct by the police watchdog. Wait, what? A further 74 complaints were made of police abusing their position of power for a sexual purpose last year. Although this is not recorded under sexual conduct by the police watchdog. Okay. Despite the uptick in referrals from police forces to the IOPC in the years since Cousins was exposed, the watchdog capacity remains limited to around 300 independent investigations each year, meaning it is forced to make difficult trade-offs which cases it chooses to pursue against officers. The figure come after a former Cheshire constabulary officer was this week found guilty of abusing his position of power for a sexual purpose after he had sex with a vulnerable domestic abuse victim during a police visit to her house in 2021. PC Jordan Masterson, 28, is due to be sentenced next month at Chester Crown Court. Is that related to Danny? I'm like, doesn't matter. Okay. The Met also this week announced PC Muhammad has been charged with sexually assaulting a woman while off duty in January 2020. He is due to appear in the Highbury Corner Magistrates Court next week, accused of 1 count of sexual assault by touching Met Officer PC and something. Okay, was also due in court, accused of 2 counts of rape and 1 count of non-fatal strangulation, and 1 count of causing actual bodily harm against a man in North London on New Year's Day. Thing there. Okay, so Harriet, director of the Center for Women Justice, and while the focus on recent cases may be encouraging more women to come forward, there is still a long way to go for confidence in police to be restored. Okay, the massive spike in complaints is extremely concerning. The extent of police misconduct, sexual misconduct, is undermining women's trust in the police and tells us there's a long way to go before confidence can begin to be restored. Not on this planet, because the pieces of shit that were raised when we were raised are forever fucked in the head. Because there's no cure for that. That's the truth and that's the fact of the matters. It's going to happen after we die. It's going to happen when we're not here. When they start actually tackling that problem in childhood. It's not when they join the police force. That is wrong. That is the wrong perception of that. And also, I'm going to point out on here, since women are not the only victims of that, because they just pulled up a gay case. It's like there's something happened here with the strangulation. The non-fatal strangulation. Okay, now I've been strangled with my shirt. I got choked with my shirt and oh god. And they did not do anything. Okay, so here's the thing. We're talking about, and I've been long before actually this case right here where she got killed and all that. Not in that country though. Here. We're coming out with that stuff. And there's a reason why we're calling them pedo rapists, because they are. But on top of that, we're women. You're ignoring the fact that they may have raped a whole bunch of guys, because in the early portion in our story, there was a lot of young boys that had been out on the street, right? They got thrown out of their parents' home because of religion, because Christians are a bunch of psychotic loons. And they abused kids and threw them out on the street. They just did. They threw them out of the home. And some had to leave the home because they were abusive piles of shit again. So regardless of how they left, they ended up in an area and the police officers were raping everybody, okay? And they didn't care ages. They didn't care anything. And they consider that to be consent. And those kids knew what they were doing. And in that mix was not just it wasn't just women. You're talking about there were some young boys out here too, okay? There was transgenders, there was gay males, there was everything you could think of. So they too may have some stories that when you start coupling the abuses on all the generally across the board, all the females got abused by police. Regardless of how they think about it, they were never seen as a human. But when you're talking about situations like that, yeah, they may have been harmed. But men promoted that harm, so it's sort of like self-abuse, you know what I mean? It's self-harm. So they promote to abuse women, then they get abused, and then they have no empathy for women getting harmed, and they make it all about themselves. And yet they're the ones that actually promoted this conduct to begin with. So they run in this cycle about things and they constantly try to jump in and go me after the whole thing. But the laws were not against them to sit there and not allow them to vote and be human trafficked by all these men. You're not the ones being degraded every fucking other word out of your goddamn mouths. So that's the actual stem off in the branch of what male supremacy is long before racism. Racism is a root out of that, as you would, because your god fucking brain thinks you're holy hell. It's this holy hell thing. They think they're God complex. That comes out of the disorder because they think they're God and they start becoming like these guru people and they start wanting to start a cult, right? And you see them all the time. Some have it worse than others and some really do start a cult. But they have, their ego is so inflated and they don't care about anybody else. They're a narcissist, right? That's part of that narcissist thing. Yeah. So then when they start doing that, then they start looking at groups of people like, oh, we'll just like enslave them. Because women were first enslaved. That's where it came from. So when women are first enslaved, see, and they have a problem with it. A lot of people have a problem with that because they look at enslaving women as nature. And that was normal. I was like, no, that was the early human trafficking. Slavery. Women. That's why it's called male supremacy, because they're taking out a gender. And so you start talking about their skin color. It's like, oh yeah, it's a bunch of white guys. Those ones. In groups. The groups change. Oh, there's black men that are male supremacists. Absolutely. Go into any part of the country. Any group. Any group of males. They all meet right there. That's how they meet in the middle. As I were talking about it, I go, they try to say that they meet in the middle. What did they say? They meet because they're Republican? I don't remember. They said some other thing that was really off basis, and I wanted to correct that, and I kept chewing them out. I was like, first of all, FBI's definition of that is completely off because they don't want to, tackle themselves. Going violent male supremacist. Like, there's a non-violent male supremacist that doesn't exist, honey. That's not a thing. So then, they meet, I think they said they meet because of a politics or something weird. I go, no. They meet because they're men. They meet because they believe that they're the top tier, leader, high power, strongest pieces of crap on, on the face of the earth. And that women are here to service their, what. And they're criminals, and they're anti-agency. That's how all these men across the globe, you can go to every single country and find them, and that's how they all meet together. No matter what that religion is, in the religion, you will find that doctrine. You will find it in there, and I'll pull it out of every single religion across the globe. That same doctrine is in there promoting that garbage, and they promote child abuse. So because they promote child abuse, that is some of the other thing in that. You had to have child abuse in there for them to be abusive to begin with. Like I said, it wasn't an easy topic to come to. It was so many layered of different educations on different, oh God, a lot of different things together to go, oh shit, duh. But people are not educated on that. There was only a small group of us in California that were probably educated on the supremacy portion, on the just general supremacy. We're not talking about like white male specific supremacy. We're just talking about supremacy itself, like just the whole mindset about that whole thing. I mean, I didn't think it would be used in another way, I mean, that it would be necessary to have known that in any other context. That is something not serious. Other thing, it's like I had to learn about them by them hurting me, it's like those things. It's like, okay, well, I got an education from getting raped a million times, right? So I know them very well. So I would say that I would know them more than themselves, unfortunately, because I could tell you, if you sat there and talked to some of them, they think they're perfectly fine, and they're not. Religion. I had massive studies as a kid on the doctrine, and I had to sit there and study that like a what. And there was only a few kids that had to do that in our church. And then I had to do some tests. I'm like, do some tests. So yeah, forward and backwards, you guys. But not only that religion, a whole bunch of other religions. So I can cite a whole shitload of religion. And other thoughts and new agey bullshit and self-help guru crap, which all kind of comes together with that stuff. But yeah, these people did not have that. That was one of the most anti things that people were so against back then. And I was like, well, I'm going to do it because it pisses everybody off. No, I mean, it's like, they claim that this was like that. And the minute that I was studying it, there was nothing like what they tried to tell me. And the minute that you find that out, you're just like, oh, everything's full of shit, dude. And then you go into this other series of things, and then you just start to see how idiotic everybody is. And I mean everybody, so it's not limited to just a group. Okay, so, let's see. The massive spike in complaints is extremely concerning. Oh, yeah. So, just wait till the guys start coming out and go, we're victims too. Besides the whole thing of them chasing them down and shooting them on the street. But I'm just saying sexually touching them or anything. There's no telling how often that's been going on. That's not even a topic yet. We're not even to the cop portions yet in America. I keep pushing the topic. They're not going with it yet. They keep ignoring us because in America, they really hate women. Holy fuck. Okay, so, and they really love muting women and they find us offensive. I'm like, these poor bastards. Okay, so this thing right here is going on, but they will not tackle this topic because they have a boot worshiping thing going on here in America because they're a bunch of psychotics. And they are pro-rape, and then they will throw the victims to the rapist cops. Yeah, yeah. Oh, you should have seen them here the other day. They all three of them try to gang up on some older woman, dude. That was crazy. That was some crazy shit. Someone needs to lose their fucking badge. A detective. A detective gave false information and made these two rookie guys, at least one of them were, I guess, think that you were able to come here and threaten some woman with a pack of 4 guys. It was a total of 4 guys being a bully to a female. And they do it because she's alone. And that's how they always operate, right? Because they've always done that to me. And I go, well, today they're supposed to have cams, right? So where's the cams? So, okay, I called, right? Because I was like, we need to investigate this and see the cams. Well, they won't answer the phone. And they will not call me back. And I go, we could prove it on my phone. I called like a dozen times, right? And I left messages and I talked to a detective. And the detective threw me back to the same loop of a message. And I go, is that the same idiot that came here and made up a story? We need to see cams, officers from LAPD. You came over here and made up some shit where you can get sued. If you arrest anybody here without the or try to do an illegal eviction on anyone, you're going to put yourself in danger of getting a lawsuit. Like, I don't know who told them that, but I think they felt it comfortable getting away with being bullies. They get off on it. They get like sexually aroused being bullies to women alone. They get a power jerk off from it. They're scared of me. Why will they not call me back? Why will they not come into my house? You know how crazy that is? People want to keep them out of their house. I'm sitting here going, you can come over to my house. They're like, they won't even respond. That's not how they were, though, before. So they feel like a man putting something like, fuck you on my car. Somebody felt really manly doing that. I don't know. Could be a woman. Could be your wife. Your wife's jealous. I don't know. I don't know who that is. They covered it up. They covered up those crimes. The men see nothing wrong with being violent, stalkers, and rapists. So they're not going to respond to that. What they want to do is go murder people. That's why I said I thought it was crazy when these police misconduct lawyers, none of them, for the life of them, didn't even consider this type of conduct as police misconduct. They're like, oh, we just associate it with some black guy getting beat up, from the cop out of his car. And I'm like, we know that happens, but that's not the only police misconduct. And then they started victim blaming me. They're all, God, you must, I don't know, like, put myself into some really bad situations. Some lawyer said this, some piece of shit rapist lawyer. The other sociopaths that sit there and go to court and make up shit, But he said, the extent of police sexual misconduct is undermining women's trust in the police. You should have never trusted the police. What? Okay, can you give me a reason? Like, in order to trust somebody, you have to build trust with somebody. If you're an entity created by rapist, human trafficking piles of crap, you should have never had trust in those people. Why was that indoctrinated into us anyway to begin with? There was a fantasy on TV the fantasy is TV land, okay? The fantasy is movies, the fantasy is TV land. That's not real life. And I think people have a problem with that because when they learn things, they watch too much TV. It's probably good to not watch that much TV because your brain is fucking fried. That is not the world. So they would, present men in this way on TV like they were this heroic saviors, of this thing. And it's like, oh, you call the police and all of a sudden they're there. It's like, yes, woman, we're here to help you. That has never happened. That's not real life. And I think people have a problem with separating fantasy from reality. And then you ask people, it's like when I go, how many times did you actually deal with the cops? I will tell you, a lot of people probably never have. Like they never had to call the cops on anything, or they never did call the cops because they're so, I don't know, spineless. I don't know. They didn't call because they just brushed it off. Like they're just like, we're not going to deal with the police. Like they may have done that. And if you ask me, I'm like, you would think I hang out with them every day, you know? Like by a choice. No, no, They force themselves into my life. That's what we call a rapist, because that's not something I invited. So, and I've dealt with them a lot more than any person of color that I know, and I've talked to them because my friends at the time, I go, how many times did they stop you when we were working at that job? Was it the same? Did you have the same harassments that I did? Because I was wondering, I go, is it just an overall thing because we work here? Is it this thing? Were you getting harassed because, maybe because your skin color or because of the job with us? I asked them completely. And they said no. And what they told me was, from their point of view, which was kind of interesting because I didn't really think of it that way, but they said that there was always this thing that the cops always harassed the pretty girls in these white pretty girls, like this thing. I was like, huh? I was like, this other thing. She told me this. But the public, when we're talking about that topic between, women of color and all that, there's a big topic on them targeting them. Of course they do. But here, in this situation, they were not being targeted in the way that I was, but they had a different perception of it, which I never heard before. And I'm like, I don't know if that's true. Maybe it is true. If it is true, then there's a bunch of white women that just sit there and don't say shit. And I think that's just as bad as anything else because the entire picture's not being heard. Like you need all that information to really get the larger picture of a thing, right? And it was weird. I don't know. I don't know how to take it because I was like, at the time when it was happening, I just kind of assumed it happened to everybody. I don't know. It was a really weird thing because I'm trying to deal with my life, and then these assholes are harassing me. So basically, it was like it is sexual harassment. It's just a form of power and control. Is it really about sex? It's not. It's about anti-agency and doing what the fuck you want and being a piece of shit sociopath. That's what it is about. Why would they sit there and pull me over and then just be like, you know what, give me some money. Why not? Just give me some money. It's like, oh, sure, let me pull out $1,000 right now. And then you don't, then they take your top off. Yeah, and then take a picture. And so then there's a picture somewhere. I'm like, well, where's this picture? Because maybe, you can get some information from that. They're sitting there jerking off to some photo somewhere. You know what I mean? It's like, this is for not paying a payola. And so then FBI gets it. So I'm like, did anybody get arrested? Anybody get arrested? Anybody get arrested for that shit? Obviously not. No, they're taking it seriously. See, that's real life. It's not TV. That's real life. I go, when was the last time you talked to those guys? They like slamming the phone on me. They don't like me. Meanwhile, Patsy, 31, who was dramatically pinned to the ground by police at a vigil for Miss Everard on March 2021, revealed she no longer trusts the police. Yep, you hadn't dealt with them before, and then you finally do, and you're like, oh God, they are a piece of crap. It's like, there you go. I think that's the thing. There's a lot of girls, there's a lot of women, there's a lot of people that actually never really dealt with them. And they watch too much TV, they listen to too much politics, and they never actually dealt with them. See, unfortunately, I had to deal with them since birth. And it's on my birth certificate. So I even show my birth certificate. I think I got like banned for showing my birth certificate. I'm like, I'm going to show you my birth certificate. That shit ain't fake. They didn't even care about my mom's career. That's what was so offensive about my birth certificate. We don't care about your mom's career. We only care about your dad. So we're not going to say what she does, that she was also at the police force, but we're going to say that your dad was. He's law enforcement. On my birth certificate. And that's you so misogyny, as you put it, is a hate crime. Yeah, so don't you think that my birth certificate is like a hate crime? I mean, on my mom, right? It's like, we don't care that you worked at the police department. We care what your dad did. We care what your husband did. We only care what men do. And that's why you never hear a man give a shit about your career. You never do. And they're fake as shit trying to come out now with that crap. Fake as shit. Fake, fake, fake. Okay, so then, okay, yeah, so she got arrested, the girl right there. So then, the former physics student said her life was transformed after she was thrust into the debate when pictures of her arrest made the front page news. It's been 3 years since she was arrested at the vigil, and I'm still having to talk about this stuff, and it's really sad. I think police have shown time and time again that they have perpetrators in the police. And when women report issues, they are often met with victim blaming. I just feel like police have still not held up their hands and been held accountable. We have not seen any change at all. Because there's no cure. I keep explaining this, and it's so annoying now because I think that people literally think that you could actually fix somebody with a personality disorder. You can't. If they want to make any change to it, they have to do something themselves. It's like any other addict, because that's actually tied to it. That's something that they have to choose to do, and they don't want to because they get rewarded for it, right? If you're rewarded for something, why would you try to fix anything? Sexual assault and harassment is unacceptable in any context, but it is even more serious and chilling when it's so prevalent among the ranks of those who are tasked to keep us safe. They were never meant to keep us safe. That's what you don't get. See, you thought they were, but they actually never were. They were supposed to keep me safe? They were supposed to keep women safe? No. How are they supposed to keep you safe when at the same time they made it legal for your husband to rape you, and that they were promoting domestic violence and to beat your wife and your kids? So how is that keeping you safe? I don't know. Those are two things that were going together, and you cannot vote. Now, I don't know the thing in the UK about voting or anything, women. I haven't looked into any of that. We're just barely learning the American history because they kept it from us, let alone some other countries. There appears to be no urgency and no accountability in British policing, and when this level of misogyny and misconduct is allowed to fester and flourish unchecked. It's male supremacy, and it is a cult. Because it has a doctrine. It has a religion. You don't have to be religious. But yes, it's stemming out of that. And it's not a mystery of which came first, the chicken or the egg. Okay, it was a sociopath came first. And then the doctrines, the writings, and all those things then came next. And then they created their own cult, basically. I don't know why they're trying to do it. They also try to go, oh, in history there's this woman. I don't know. Like, they're trying to manipulate, like, it wasn't always that. I don't know. It was always that. Trust that. It went way back, way before the Bible. Way before the Bible. And just because a woman ruled doesn't mean she's not a male supremacist. So, they like to do that. And just because somebody's black doesn't mean they're not a white male supremacist. No, we bring up that Jesse guy. He's like, it's best that we go back on the cotton field. It's like, dude, what the hell? Yeah, so he talks like that about himself. So, and women do it all the time. Every time they slut shame. Every time they use this terminology. They do it to themselves just as dumbly as anybody else, okay? They exist, but they don't really... I'm trying to point out because when I figure it out, somebody pointed it out to me. And so then I look back at it and go, oh, God. But nobody actually pointed out that the LGBT terms, the derogatory terms, were actually derived from degrading women. Nobody went that far with it. I had to sit there and think about it. I was like, why was he even saying this thing to this guy? Because I neither meant it in the way of being anti-female, and neither did I mean it in the way to be anti-gay. It was that there was no terminology that we have as women to use towards men who are a bunch of male supremacists. So there was no actual wording for it. And I go, how weird. I'm not even really degrading the gays, because technically when you're saying that, you're degrading women. Because there's a problem with why they have a problem with the LGBTQ. And so I was like, oh, I'm saying that the guy is bad because he's acting feminine? Like you're saying something like that, right? Like there's something supposed to be wrong with being feminine? Why would I sit there and have a problem with that? You know, like you're looking at the usage of words and what the deeper meaning of the words that you're using, and you may be ignorantly saying it, but I don't think it's even really ignorantly saying it, because those are the people that when I'm listening to their language, those are the rapists, and they're not ignorantly raping. You could debate some of that on children. However, as adults, that is not an ignorant thing. The National Police Chiefs Council said forces take complaints from members of the public very seriously. Oh, here we go. This is the robot voice of male supremacists. We take the... I told you, if you ever hear this, oh my God, know already, the person is a pathological liar, okay? The person is a pathological liar, because we as victims do not even talk like this, okay? So they always go like this. They're like, this is the most serious of crimes that could ever happen. Okay, that's a rapist, so beware. Okay, so they say this. So there's just another form of it, what they're saying. They're like, very seriously, and change is happening. No, it's not, because you don't even know what the goddamn problem is, and I'm telling you what the problem is, and you're calling it misogyny when it's way worse than what you're saying. And you don't even know where it came from. You don't know how to tackle it. You don't know where it started from. And you think it's caused from them just joining a police force. That is false and incorrect and stupid. I'm just going to say it, it's just stupid. We are fully committed to making sure... Okay, here we go. We are fully committed to making sure those individuals who are not fit to wear the uniform are identified... Oh, God, robot. Identified and removed from our forces. They always say that. And they never do, because you're asking a person that's a pro-rapist, right? So they're just like, we are fully committed. We don't even, we're just saying that because mom's mad at us and we don't want to get busted again. But we're still a bunch of rapists, and I got to keep my bros up in here because we got to keep the white power going. That's kind of what they're saying. We don't really think anything's that serious about raping some dumb women. They're all fucking liars. That's them. We have to say this because we have to manipulate the public into thinking that we actually are there to protect women when they never were. Okay. Chief constables are continuing to bring forward serious cases which sanctions or remove who's badly let the public down. This approach underlines our commitment to uphold high standards expected by the public. High standards? We're just asking you guys to act like a damn human. I think it's funny, they're all high standards. I was like, what, for you guys to not be rapists? I mean, is it asking too much? Apparently it is. Okay, so all forces have dedicated professional... Oh, God, here we go. Forces have dedicated professional standards department which investigate complaints against officers and staff. These departments work to strict guidelines, operate confidential reporting phone lines for both the public and the colleagues to raise concerns that are regularly independently inspected. They are proactively act upon intelligence to weed out the very small number. Oh, here we go. Oh, they just minimized it. Oh. Okay. They're not going to do anything. This is them. They're trying to go like this. Okay, here's the facts. They're all rapists, okay? It's a male supremacist entity. He goes, we're going to weed out the very small number of officers. Small. There's just a tiny little portion of this. Yeah, no, that's not a thing. If you want to make an argument for a small number of decent officers, I don't know if they really exist because they're working in a mad pile of criminals. But you could sit there and say that and pass that type of thing off. You're not passing it off here, where you're all a bunch of rapists. You always were. You were never against rape. You didn't arrest rapists. You threw out rape kits. You did a million things, okay? And they're all this very small number. They minimized it. They're socios. They minimize it. But he just said a whole bunch of verbal garbage because there's like, all forces have dedicated professional standards. Okay, what are your standards? Because we already know your professional standards are in the dirt. And it was created by men, right? Your standards are by men, and that's the only standards that we have to go by. Is something that a male created, and particularly a white male created, that's a standard that everybody has to go by? Why don't you go by my standards? As a white woman or as a woman of color, she can make a standard. Can anybody make that standard other than a white man that you would follow and not sit there and have a hissy fit and start getting violent? That's the thing. See, it's that right there. And they go, which investigate complaints against officers and staff. So these departments work to strict guidelines. Okay, can you explain how my dad hooked up with my mom at the department when they were both married? I mean, wouldn't that make my dad like a predator? And she's like literally 9 years younger than my dad. And they try to make this like normal or something. I mean, can we talk about that? I believe that my dad like preyed on my mom while they were working together. That would be the staff. And okay. And then they didn't want to declare my mom an officer because, you know, women just did not fit to be officers at that time. Yeah, that bullshit. We throw them on the front desk to take the phone calls. And then we throw men that when they're getting busted, we throw them on the desk and they get all pissy. And then if you call on the front desk, they just tell everybody off. Those ones. Okay, they work to strict guidelines, which, what does this mean? See, to the public, it's just like, you say some verbal lip service garbage. It's like, these departments work to strict guidelines. What are these strict guidelines? Like, no, you don't. You operate confidential reporting phone lines for both the public and colleges or colleagues to raise concerns that are regularly independently inspected. It's just like when I did my investigations here, how they okayed sexual misconduct from officers and said, what is that, extracurricular activities are totally cool. Yeah, there was some other thing that they were trying to justify for their sexual misconduct, regardless on the job or off the job. And then they were using like going into these jobs with a bunch of beautiful women as something that they had to do to check up on the workplace. Yeah, so they're like, we're going to justify us being sexual predators because we have to, you know, make sure these women are safe. And then they go in there and they're part of a human trafficking ring and they're trying to rape all the girls, you know, that thing that they were doing. And they still do today. And they proactively act upon intelligence to weed out the very small number of officers. Okay, so they proactively act upon intelligence. Okay, I guess they're saying they proactively act upon if some insider gives them some information that someone's a piece of shit that they don't like to get rid of them. Because outside that, it's like, rape, we don't care. We shared nude pictures of everybody and our other officers around the office, and that's okay. That's our high standards and strict guidelines. That's okay. Okay, action is being taken and change is happening. No, you can't just say that and there's nothing happening. And what they explained right here told you absolutely nothing other than they're not changing, and it's the whole entire departments, and it's not a very small number of anything. There's no such thing as a small number of male supremacists. We are working toward delivering those long-term improvements to standards and culture we have promised. That literally means nothing, you guys. They didn't lay it down what their damn problem is. It cannot be a thing where they're like, oh, it's not me, it's everybody else. Because I'm going to tell you, when I talk about this topic, is it a topic where I say, it's everybody else and not me? That is never how I present this topic at all. I do a flashback in conduct, and we talk about sociopath behaviors, right? And how there's I'm like, what is it? We're getting late here. I got to start ending this. A spectrum, right? A spectrum. And everybody has done a behavior like that at some time, mostly as kids, because you're learning and you do stupid shit and you don't think, right? So you know the mindset of it. At any time do I sit there and say, I'm far and away from it? It's like, no. I go, no, I've said things out of my mouth, man. It's like, isn't that crazy? And we dissect it, right? And we look at where it came from. These guys here are trying to separate themselves entirely from the whole problem. And they're like, it's only a few people. But you know what? This happened when the racism topic came up with the cops, right? They said the same thing, right? It's tied together. But this is the meat of the problem. That's why that happened. Get to the point of correcting a thing until you get to the root of the problem. If you're going down, I don't know, what do you say, the stem of the plant. I'm like the stem of the plant there. And you start picking out some leaves, you know, because racism would be one of the leaves on it. And it's like, well, you're not going to tackle it. Because they still believe in slavery of enslaving women to them. Okay? So when you start looking at why it's called that to begin with, is the divide of the genders. It goes into that thing there. So if you want to tackle that other thing, you need to tackle their problem with women first. You do. You do. You definitely do. Because everybody has that problem. And women are not far away from it. They got the same friggin' indoctrination. So it's not, just because it's called male something, you know, it's not, they still uphold the same mindset. But it's late, and I need to end, because I'm sitting here like, my brain's like, psh, 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 you know, shutting down here. So, what else can we say about the topic? America still needs to tackle this. I mean, for some reason, England and Wales has been a little ahead on it. And we had the case with the serial killer police officer. In America, it just went over everybody and they don't care. They still hero worship an entity that was never here to protect women. And for some reason, there's this romanticism, I guess, from TV. I can only think it's from TV because real life has never shown that. Now, they lie to your face and say stuff like this, but the reality is when it gets down to it, what did they do? What did they do on scene? What did they do in your case? Did they brush it off? Did they do the proper procedures? Did they do any of these things to respect you as a human and reanalyze these situations with any officers that you ever had to deal with? And, you know, and it's just some of the things were normalized of being disrespected. I'd even maybe the only case that they cared about was the guy that kidnapped me, but then I had to go through that too, and I go, they didn't give a shit that he kidnapped me. They didn't give a shit that he totally kidnapped me. Like, nothing. They didn't take pictures. They didn't do any of this stuff. And then they told me to leave. I'm like, really? I think that, you know, there was a lot wrong with that situation. A lot wrong. So I had to relook at everything. I go, no, they never did anything right. They never respected me in that whole time. Never. I couldn't think of a single case where they did something right.